Hi, I'm Bobby Lyons and I'm located in Hillsboro, Oregon. I am super excited to bring you another BodyWorks video here at Agility Nation. Today we're going to talk about rear end spine and rib cage flexibility, and we're going to take a look at some common stretches that are done in canine fitness and common stretches that a lot of agility people see. Things like psoas stretches, things like bow. And what I wanted to do was put together a presentation that kind of showed you where you can get more or less benefit out of these stretches and look at what is a good position and what is a position that might be focused on something else. Okay, the first thing that I want to talk about is what might cause tight muscles. And some of those things might be repetitive movements, a new movement or activity, adding activity after a period of rest, and lack of extended movement. So in agility, sometimes we do a lot of collected jumping, and that collected jumping can sometimes cause shortened hamstrings, as an example. Tight muscles can cause muscle shortening. So in the example that I just mentioned of a lot of collected jumping, and those tight hamstrings can actually become shorter, and then that really prevents that extension through the rear limbs. So that's just an example of muscle shortening. Short striding, so when the muscles get shorter, the dog will stride shorter. So they will not reach as far with their limbs because the muscles are really preventing it. If you have a lack of extension through the neck and spine, it will also cause your dog to short stride. And when your dog gets tight muscles, they will have compensatory movement and it could lead to injury. So these are all things to be aware of as you move forward in performance sports and with your stretching plan. So benefits of stretching will improve your dog's flexibility. It will maintain proper range of motion through the joints. It will increase the blood flow to the muscles. It enables muscles to work more efficiently together as a group. It may reduce the chance of injury. It may reduce post-exercise soreness if you have some stretching as part of your cool down at the very end of a cool down, and it may improve your performance overall. The different types of stretching that we're dealing with are active stretches and passive stretches. Active stretches relies solely on the athlete and doesn't involve an external force. Passive stretching uses an external force as on a relaxed muscle to produce a stretch. So a passive stretch is you manually manipulating the dog to hold a stretch, versus an active stretch is going to be the dog being encouraged to move that limb and hold it themselves. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is active stretches. So the principles of active stretching are muscles should be very warm before stretching. So you can do active stretching as part of a workout. You can do active stretching as just part of activity. I always recommend doing some active stretching as at the end of a warm-up before activity. You want to do smooth holds and no bouncing. You can do a smooth hold that is only a few seconds. So for active stretching, your holds are going to be 0 to 5 seconds, but you don't necessarily want to bounce through those stretches. You just want to do a smooth movement. Like say you're doing a rear limb extension stretch. You want to move that dog out into that stretch, hold, and then back off and allow that dog to relax those muscles and then move out into a smooth stretch again. And stretching in a perfect world should be done 2 to 3 times a week, if possible. All right, the first stretch that we're going to look at is a very common stretch that you see in performance sports today. This is a hip flexor stretch. I also wanted to point out that it is actually strengthening the shoulder stabilizers right here. And if you have the rear feet positioned as in this top photo where the knee and the elbow are approximately at the same height, you get a nice straight spine, you get a good extension through the rear, and again, that stabilization in the shoulders. But if you are looking for a little bit more spine extension, this photo shows the rear legs higher. There's a little bit more extension through the rear and a little bit more arching of the back or extension through the spine. This is okay if this is your goal. So if you have a dog that is not super flexible in the spine, they might really resist this stretch and not extend as much. And that's okay. It's just something to watch for in your dog. So this is a good starting point. This is a good addition or advanced stretch. And if your dog is really new to this type of stretch, it is perfectly okay to actually have their feet lower here. And I'm gonna go on to show you this stretch is also, my dog is super, super flexible. So he can extend really well even in a standing position, but notice that the front limb is still straight down from the shoulder. So if you look at this, it is the same as in this previous picture to protect the shoulders. You don't want, let me get my little drawing tool here. You don't want the shoulders to end up way forward you don't want this to extend this way. Actually, let me wait for that to go away. Okay. You don't want the shoulders out here and the angle to be this way. You want that angle to stay straight up and down. Well, that's not exactly straight, but straight up and down as in this red line. So let me switch the slides here. All right, here is a stretch that is non-weight bearing, and it has a lot of benefit because it also engages the lower abdominal muscles. So when I see dogs doing this stretch, I see them engage the oblique muscles. Oops, where did my slide go? There we go. I see them engage the oblique muscles right in here and all the way through this stretch. So I see all of these muscles in here engaging. Oftentimes you'll see the muscles along the back engaging, but the dog is not weight bearing and just kind of pushing out with their rear feet to stretch forward for that cookie. So hopefully that makes some sense. And next we're going to look at a hip extension that is also a combination exercise to strengthen the shoulders. So in this situation, rather than having that standing position where they have the front feet straight down, the front feet are still straight down, but you are flexing through the elbow here and flexing through the shoulder. So this is a really great stretch and strength activity to get strength in the biceps here, to get strength in the shoulders, and to get that nice flexibility through the spine all the way up. And then the next stretches we're going to look at is a bow. And I want you to notice in this top photo here, the dog is a little bit scrunched up. You can kind of see some rounding of the spine right here. And so I'll wait for that to go away. You can kind of see that rounding more when I didn't draw on it. And you can see that the rib cage is a little shorter. Her head is low. She's not really shifted all the way back. She's actually kind of shifted forward a little bit. And in this stretch, her head is higher. She's longer through the spine. She's longer through the rib cage. And she's shifted her weight into her rear. You can really see the difference in these two stretches if you look at them. This one is more beneficial. This one might indicate that the dog did not start in a balanced position, or it might indicate that the dog is sore in here and sort of protecting that and not wanting to lengthen through. It might also mean that the dog is sore through the rib cage and doesn't want to extend, as you see in this photo here. There's a lot more extension here through the rib cage and opening up between those, the intercostal muscles. So it's really, really important to see the difference here. If you are trying to lengthen through that rib cage, this is a much better position. So what happens oftentimes in dogs that jump is that they get a lot of compression through the rib cage, and then it doesn't allow them to extend well through the shoulder. It doesn't allow them to extend well through the spine. So that opening up of the rib cage is super important. All right, the next one is a rear foot elevated stretch. And you can kind of see here where my dog's elbows are, they're bent and kind of straight down from the shoulder. They're in a little bit of extension. You can kind of see that angle here. The rib cage is a little tighter, and he's actually, his hock is behind his butt. So he's actually getting more stretch over the top of his butt here and through his spine here. and a little bit less through the shoulder, so not as much stretch here, not as much stretch here. But when you look at the second stretch, you can see that his weight is shifted this way. He's getting a lot of stretch through the hamstring here. He's getting a lot more extension through the shoulder. His rib cage is much more opened up and long here. And he's also getting a little bit of spine extension here. So this is a really, really valuable stretch. The way it is set up. This is not a bad stretch. It's just not focused exactly the same. Here, the weight is shifted forward. Here, the weight is shifted back. That is one of the big things that you want to look at in a bow stretch. Once you get weight shifted back, you are focusing more on those hamstrings. And if the elbows are off the ground, as generally they can be when they are, when their rear feet are on something, then, and the head is up, you get a lot more opening up of the rib cage here than you would in this position. So I just want you guys to really see the difference in these stretches so that you can look and focus on what you need to focus on. So if you're focused on hamstring stretches, it's perfectly okay to go, let me go back to this stretch where elbows are on the floor, weight is shifted back again. So in this one, weight is shifted back. You're getting a nice hamstring stretch here. Not really focused on shoulder extension too much, but you're getting a lot of extension through the rib cage. Whereas in the one where rear feet are elevated, you're getting a little bit more extension through the shoulders. So you're getting a nice stretch all the way through here. Getting a nice stretch through here. You're getting a nice stretch back here. So you're getting a little bit more bang for your buck with the rear feet elevated, the head up, and the elbows extended. So let's see. So here is a combination stretch. This is a plank to a bow. In this one, you can see a lot more extension in the shoulders. There's a lot more extension through here, which is nice. The dog's getting a nice stretch back here. Weight is shifted back. You can actually see that he's kind of pushing on the table here to get weight shifted back to those hamstrings. His rear toes could be ever so slightly closer to the edge here to have a really perfect position, but overall this is a really nice position. You're getting a lot of lengthening here through and opening up through the rib cage, and a lot of stretch right through the butt and right down the hamstrings and definitely through the shoulders. So this is a very common stretch or strengthening activity that I do during workshops that really helps people really see how to get that weight shift back. So if the dog's weight shifted forward, then oftentimes the elbows are bent here and dropped below the table height. So it is really, really important to keep those elbows above the height of the climb. All right, and the last picture here shows a little bit of hip flexion while trying to get a little separation through the hips. So this is showing really kind of flexing the spine, bringing the leg forward, and then trying to keep this one back, the other leg remaining in position so that you can get a little bit of flexion in the spine, flexion in the hip, while still reaching back with the other leg. That just helps open up the hips a little bit. So I want you to also notice that in this picture, you can see that the front feet are straight down from the hips. So that really doesn't change much. All of the motion is coming through the spine and through the hips in this one. This can be done on paw pods. It can be done in different ways. You want to watch out for the dog really swinging their body. You can kind of see that my dog is swung a little bit towards the camera because he's just not used to this stretch as much as he could be if we had practiced it a lot more. But this is a really beneficial stretch for the spine. And it's also a really good strengthening exercise for stability in maintaining that separation in the rear leg. So getting that that leg to come forward and stabilize, and maintaining a regular stand here, and then getting that nice flexion of the spine. And again, maintaining the position in the front. Notice that his head is in a neutral position, not low, not high, because right now I'm just really focused on flexing the spine and flexing the hip flexor while maintaining the other leg in a neutral position. So hopefully this all makes sense to everybody. I am looking forward to your comments. I put this together because I think that there's a lot of confusion and or maybe lack of awareness of how these stretches can change based on your position, your dog's position, their head position, the treat position, all of those things. So I really, really hope that this helps you guys understand active rear end and spine stretches a little bit better. And thank you for having me here on Agility Nation.